Today, Valentine's Day, our guest speaker is going to be Rachel Braithwaite, who's the Executive Director of the St. Catharines Downtown Association. Rachel Braithwaite is the Executive Director for St. Catharines Downtown Association and also sits on the Executive Board for the Ontario Improvement Area Association, where she helps chair the advocacy committees. Rachel is passionate about what she does as a small business, and downtown in particular are the economic engines of a city and a place where community can come together to celebrate, advocate, and create memories. So, welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Give me 2 minutes to just switch to speaker and share my screen. Okay. Oh, I feel clickers going off. I feel like I'm famous. Like this. I think we're good. Perfect. So thank you, Duncan, for the kind introduction. I'm going to have to remember to stay here. I tend to wander when I speak, so apologies. My name, as Duncan mentioned, is Rachel, and I am the Executive Director for the St. Catharines Downtown Association in this beautiful city. I haven't been there that long, actually. I've only been there for almost 2 years now, but I have loved every minute of it. And I think our downtown is spectacular. So I'm taking the easy route, and I'm going to follow Peter's steps and show a video, so you don't have to listen to me for the full time. Hoping this.
These are my limited edition socks.
Sorry, I left the ends. Does it?
On stereo, it's all we're getting it in the hall, but not.
Oh.
Why? So Peter can share the video without you have to start to share. So it's just, it's not, this is the Zoom connection. Since you're here, we're better at this than I am. Nice to have a video. Yeah, it is so right there. Here, I have it on another Zoom connection here. Is that the video? You got it. Yeah, we got
Does
it.
that work?
Yes.
I just want you to know that the pictures are just for our newsletter and website.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. You mean I'm not going to be famous after today, though?
Oh, you're famous.
Well, we've already taken care of
Awesome. Thank you. Perfect. We think we're good.
Yeah, this
We'll
is
try again.
this is an independent connection. It's there. It's fine.
Vibrant, diverse, bustling business areas. From designated downtown cores in rural centers to the countless boroughs and hubs in major cities, Ontario is fueled by dedicated entrepreneurs, merchants, and small business owners who serve their communities and who take an interest in helping them thrive. What is the common thread that ties all of these areas together? They are all part of BIAs, or Business Improvement Areas. So, what does that mean? A business improvement area is a self-funded association of commercial property owners and tenants within a defined area, commonly referred to as a downtown or main street, who work in partnership with their municipal council to create thriving and safe business areas that attract shoppers, diners, tourists, and new businesses. By working collectively as a BIA for the good of the community, local businesses have both the funding and people power to actively enhance the quality of life in their local downtown and the municipality as a whole. Thanks to this legislative authority between municipal council and business owners, BIAs serve as a true public-private partnership. Essentially, a BIA is a mechanism that encourages business people and the respective municipality in which they reside to join together in a cooperative effort to revitalize and rejuvenate their business district, to make their area a better place to do business. BIAs are involved with a wide array of economic development initiatives, including event planning, area marketing, policy and partner influencing, and investing in the public realm. We'll dive into each of these topics in more detail soon, but first, let's investigate why BIAs were created and what makes them so important. Let's take it all the way back to Toronto in the late 1960s. With the building of shopping malls on the outskirts of the city and the extension of the Bloor-Danforth subway line, Toronto business owners were facing a plethora of new challenges. People were no longer frequenting the main streets as they once had, and as a result, some merchants were forced to close their shops or even, in some instances, follow the crowds to the malls. Vacancies resulted, and many local shopping areas began to look run down and abandoned. With forward thinking, a group of Bloor West Village business owners went to Toronto City Hall and the province. They sought legislation that would compel all businesses within a designated area to pay a levy for the purpose of revitalizing their business strip through physical improvements and promotional activities. The levy would be collected by the city and turned over to the elected board of management to be used as needed. After some persuasion, the idea was finally adopted, and in 1970, Bloor West Village was officially designated the first ever BIA in the world. Currently, there are more than 300 BIAs in the province of Ontario alone, with 84 in Toronto. The BIA model has been adopted globally, and the program's enormous success is largely attributed to the fact that BIAs are created for local businesses by local community members. Once the first BIA was established and the concept proved feasible, dozens of new BIAs began to emerge and a provincial BIA committee was formed. This committee was led by Ontario's Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to support BIA work. In 1982, the BIA committee identified the need for a central resource for information and idea exchange, and OBIA, or the Ontario BIA Association, was established. OBIA and the Toronto-based Toronto Association of BIAs have evolved since then. Both OBIA and TABIA have worked tirelessly to support BIAs through funding, services, ancillary resources, and initiatives such as TABIA's Digital Main Street. Now that we know the history behind BIAs, let's take a closer look at 4 major pillars of how they serve their communities. The first major pillar of BIA work is serving as public realm investors. At its inception in 1970, the BIA concept was based on the importance of investing in the space between and surrounding the buildings and the businesses, the public realm.
Being a public realm investor, the BIA has a unique way of being able to give a place a sense of place. And you see that with their banners and their benches, their entrance signage. Maybe it's their historical plaques around the area's history. So the public realm investment is over and above that of which the municipality provides. It gives that extra pizzazz and vitality to a community.
BIAs that invest in the public realm recognize that the key to success begins with drawing visitors to it by making it a sociable, exciting, and vibrant environment. The second pillar of BIA work is being an area marketer.
Sorry.
A BIA who promotes the downtown area also promotes its businesses. This includes generating well-thought-out marketing campaigns utilizing all forms of media while remaining on brand. Is to draw attention to the downtown area and all businesses.
2 ticks, or oh, now it's working. Sorry, I don't know how that screen shocked up. And I'm now just breaking everything. Did everybody get the screen that came up? No, was it just my screen? I thought it was on your screen too. My apologies. The riveting video will start again soon.
Is within it. The BIA uses a model that focuses on 3 brand building categories. Brand product development, focusing on small but significant physical attributes. Brand marketing, developing creative campaigns to reach the public. And brand presentation, a direct communication program that connects to local influential networks, partners, and organizations.
The role really of the BIA is to promote the area as a shopping area, a safe, come to visit and enjoy area. And that's done much easily when it's done for a collaborative effort such as the BIA's.
The return on investment takes into consideration social engagement and population reach in combination with event facilitation and business interaction. The third pillar of the BIA is influencing policy and partners. With strong strategic plans, BIAs can become integral vehicles for communicating localized business opportunities and challenges to policymakers, government partners, local community agencies, and commercial organizations. By embracing a cooperative relationship with these partners, BIAs are able to advocate for and influence positive change on behalf of the area, its businesses, and the local community. The ability to share captured data and effectively address policies and investment helps establish the right environment to contribute to building our local businesses and community. Creative problem solving and a strong working relationship with all key partners helps the BIA create a vibrant and exciting area. The final pillar is creating and executing events.
Our BIAs in the province of Ontario actually have about 60% of the community-based events in the whole of Ontario. Our events are really important, and I hope you've all been to one of them. Our sidewalk sales, or our Christmas events, or our farmers markets, our special celebrations such as food events and food festivals.
Hosting events is a way for downtowns to really show all that they have to offer. Events have the power to attract visitors, create community, and bring vibrancy to the area. As an event facilitator, it is the BIA's responsibility to bring events to life. With creative flair, BIAs identify target audiences, implement events for these audiences, support event brands, help devise event concepts, and organize technical aspects. Additionally, BIAs help spread the word through partnerships, social media, strategic marketing, and local media. As a self-funded municipal local board, BIAs are able to ensure that their actions are intentional, mutually beneficial for private business owners and public community members, and most importantly, municipal council. BIAs are the backbone of business districts, whether they are main streets, downtowns, neighborhood cores, or industrial areas, not only in Ontario but around the world. Since their inception, they have benefited local businesses, residents, visitors, policymakers, and your community.
So, did anybody notice anything about the video of where it was filmed? If I scoot back a little bit to give you a hint.
I saw the Ice Dogs mascot.
Yeah, good catch. So there was a ton of this is old St. Catharines. So there were loads of screenshots in St. Catharines. All of this is St. Catharines, which was fantastic. So one of the perks, I guess, of sitting on the OBIA board is I get to thread them the great shots that we have of our beautiful downtown. I'm just going to go back to my slides. So sorry for sharing a generic video. It's a great snapshot of what a BIA is, and it saves me from talking at you too much. And they really have quite concisely shared what that is. Do I still need to stand in the confines? If this, I don't know. We'll stay just in case. So what is a BIA? So I think most of you heard what a BIA is, so I'm not going to reiterate that spiel, but I will just say that most downtowns often take up as little as 1% of the citywide land area, but attract 10 to 20 times in terms of that and contributing to the city's assessment base and generating tax revenues, which is why they're often referred to as those economic hubs, those heartbeats of the city, because that is where most of the local economic center is. So typically with small businesses, as we know, they invest mostly in the local community. So when you go to a Walmart, typically you're buying something, the money goes back to whether that was manufactured, which is typically not Canada. Typically, the employees are paid a lower wage, whereas when you go to a local business, you're investing locally. So that business owner pays the rent locally, they live locally, they hire locally, they source locally. So you're really keeping everything here. So it has numerous benefits. So downtowns are iconic and powerful symbols to a city and often contain the most iconic landmarks, distinctive features, and unique neighborhoods. So I want to pass the mic a little bit here and ask for you guys to share any of your distinctive, are we okay to do this? Am I getting too long? Oh, perfect. So if you have thoughts on iconic landmarks downtown, or what are your favorite distinctive features or favorite businesses downtown? Anybody wanting to share? All right, thank you. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Art. And you're right, the watering can has been a staple downtown for many, many years. And so we have tons of longstanding businesses like that. For example, Catharines Fine Furniture, they now have 3 stores. They've been there for hundreds of years. Well, no, I shouldn't say plural, but over 114 years they've been downtown. So we're really grateful for those longstanding businesses that have grown and become a main part of our downtown. Peter, go ahead.
Here the Penn Center, so I don't go downtown much, but I was there 5 times last week for the Performing Arts Center, for 5 different events that were going on there. And I will be going there at noon today to the Performing Arts Center with a free concert at noon that Brock University puts on. I think the Performing Arts Center is the main reason I ever go downtown.
Yes, we hear that a lot. We are very, very lucky to have such a fantastic building. Has everybody been to the Performing Arts Center downtown? Love it, love it. And if you haven't, I encourage you to do so. It is a spectacular building. They often have free events. If any of you have children or grandchildren, on family day, they have tons of free activities for the kids. But if you want to go yourself and not bring kids, I'm sure you could do that as well and just go and explore the area, the building, because it's spectacular building. Absolutely. Sorry.
I think one of the biggest obstacles facing not only our downtown, but downtown all over pretty much the Western world is parking. I recall back in 1953, I think, in my hometown of Croydon, England, now London. There had been, up until that time, no parking restrictions. Parking restrictions were brought in, and all it became was a merry-go-round of vehicles driving round and round and round and round, trying to find some place to park. This goes on, some 50 years later, and cities simply don't get it from a consumer standpoint or a business standpoint. Their only interest is to rake in money for whatever. It may be the maintenance of roads and parking multi-lanes and what have you. But this is something that I think every PIA really needs to get into, and I'm sure already has to some degree. Parking charges are not the solution to parking problems. They just create more congestion on the streets and more parking issues. Businesses and consumers lose out. Thank you.
No, it's a very valid point. I think the biggest comment we get from people is parking. And it also poses the most confusion. We are very lucky in our downtown that we do have 2 high-rise parking garages. My personal pet peeve is they are not very well advertised, not very well marketed or signposted. So when we get visitors coming from out of town to go to the Performing Arts Center or to the Meridian Center, they don't realize they're parking garages. So they literally drive in circles looking for parking. So I agree with you that there needs to be a lot better work done with regards to education of what's available downtown for parking. I've had conversations with the city staff about our parking when I first started, because it was brought to my attention immediately that it was an issue. And they have told me that even when Elton John performed at the Meridian Center, there were still spaces available in those parking garages. They've never been sold out. So that shows that there's that gap, right? So, and parking is something they were often communicating with city council about to get it improved for sure. I'm gonna let you sit down if that's okay, and we'll keep going through, and I'll give everybody a chance later to chat too. So the St. Catharines Downtown Association, SCDA is our acronym, was established in 1973. So we are, as you probably heard through the video, one of the oldest BIAs in the world. We have over 700 members, which are all kind of, the BIA is directed by a board of directors, which is made up of those members. So we are the biggest BIA in the Niagara region. We have 4 committees that we really focus on, and that's governance, kind of probably a bit boring, but policy, bylaws, that kind of stuff. Marketing, communications, we have events, and we have civic and sustainability. There's lots of other things we do, but those are our main committees where we bring people in from either outside the organization. They don't have to be members, but also many of our members join as well. So I just wanted to provide a bit of a recap for 2022 to give you a little highlight of some of the things that we worked on. So events, as you may have heard through the video, is a big thing that BIAs typically focus on. And with coming out of COVID, we really wanted to basically open our arms again to the community to encourage people to come back to our downtown. So we focused heavily on events last year. So we hosted over 7 weekend events. They were all listed here in the promo example that we did. And basically every weekend this summer, we pedestrianized our streets. So it really, we got a lot of positive feedback from the community. They loved being able to just walk our streets basically. So here's a few quick photos. So you'll see in the top one on the left, right, maybe, the watering can. So we worked with the watering can. They did pop-up markets outside and workshops. They created floral wreaths with kids, which was sold out every day. So tremendous hit. We did on the bottom 2 here is called Holly Festival of Color. So we worked with one of our local businesses. They came to us and said, we really want to put this initiative on. It's not held anywhere in the Niagara region. Holly Festival of Color is an East Indian celebration of spring. We did it in summer because weather's a little bit more reliable. So it was a fantastic celebration. Tons of people came out. They had these basically powder packets of color they threw in the air and everybody got colored. And I think it helped. We also had the fire truck there. And so the fire brigade were closing people down. For some reason, it was a hit. So continuing on, here's some photos from some of our family-focused events again. We had the library come out and do stories with the kids, interactive stories. We had huge bouncy castles. The basketball tournament that you saw on the street, that was our downtown as well. We had dancing lessons on the street. And we had music, lots and lots of music. Almost all of the stage shots that you saw in those videos were downtown St. Catharines. So they were really, really popular. Obviously, no, we're not all events because we want to make sure that when people come to our downtown for those events or for our businesses, that it is beautiful downtown. This was taken downtown. It's hard to tell. So public realm improvements or beautification. So last year alone, we spent over $75,000 just on beautification initiatives. So that's things like hanging baskets, planters, pollinator gardens. We had string lights installed. We offered patio grants and beautification grants as well to our businesses in turn through some grants that we got in. So they could add flower boxes or benches in front of their buildings just to really enhance the public realm. Marketing. So this was all our branding for our pedestrianized streets. It was called Downtown Promenade. So we currently have about 25,000 followers on social media. So you're welcome to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We do also send out newsletters. We have about 9,000 followers on our newsletter. And we do have our website too, which is very popular. Advocacy is another big piece. So this is me, if you can see me, right in the back at Queen's Park, where I went to meet with local MPs. And advocacy. So as mentioned in the intro, I am the co-chair for the OVIA Advocacy Committee, which means that we help create and give feedback on lots of policies that are coming out from both the Ontario and the federal government. So last year, we helped create the NGO, a homelessness toolkit for BIAs, which was being tremendous. And I'll step back a little bit and say, typically years past, BIAs would not be involved as much with advocacy. COVID has really heightened the need for us to branch out so that we're not just events and marketing, because there's more other issues now affecting our downtowns. As homelessness has increased, mental health challenges have increased, it really has impacted our downtowns globally. So we're now coming up with other supports, advocating for things that we've never advocated before, becoming allies with different groups and organizations to help, provide support a little bit further afield so that our downtown doesn't become just an escape ground, so to speak. So the homelessness toolkit was created. Policy reports have gone forward to when the Ontario election was on, where we were able to have basically a seat in front of all of these people that were running to say, this is how you need to support our main streets. As mentioned previously, we've also advocated at Queen's Park and others. And then obviously on a municipal level, we have to have a very good relationship with our council. So we do that on a regular basis. Just last night, I was delegating about the new patio program coming into place. So we're very excited to see more patios come to our downtown again. And you may have noticed the parking meter, because last year we delegated about parking because, as some of you may be aware, but Born and Raised came to Montebello Park, which was a very large scale event. And the city tried to pursue very quickly $20 event fee parking. And I was not very happy, to say the least. So needless to say, we went and delegated to say, no, thank you. So they reduced it to $10 for event parking. Now, I will say it's special events. So it's when there's a big thing happening at Meridian Center or not even that, it would be much bigger than that. So when there's multiple events, bringing lots of people from outside, that's when they implement this special event parking. This year it is going up to the 20. We could only hold them off for a year, but yeah, there's definitely some tweaks still needed on parking. So for 2023, our plans are to actually shift a little bit away from events. We're not going to be pedestrianizing our streets every weekend this summer again. We're focusing more so on member engagement and advocacy. We're doing a number of tours, we're doing workshops, we're doing networking events for our members. And then obviously with advocacy, we've currently just put in our comments on the Ontario budget proposal to say, please give more support for our Main Street businesses. We're working to amend the Municipal Act that is like this document that is a little bit hindering what we do because we are formed under the Municipal Act. And then of course we delegate to council. We're currently doing a call out to help support Turkey and Syria. So that's been going really successfully. One of our members has led the initiative as the chef that's there, works at Dispatch, is from Turkey. So they have sent carloads full of blankets and tents and sleeping bags and flashlights. So we worked with our landlord actually gave us a free space and said, collect here. And so we've been filling this space continuously as people just drive down and say, please take it, with tears in their eyes, because they're so grateful they can help. So we're really excited to be part of some really beautiful community initiatives like that too. So there is still events. So we are planning for 2023 an April 22nd Spring Festival. This will be focused around Earth Day. So we'll have a lot of sustainability focused initiatives. We're working really closely with the Maryland Iwaka School of Fine and Performing Arts. So we'll have lots of sustainability focused vendors. We're going to have some gardening. We're going to have plant sale and a plant swap. And we're working with local cyclist groups to come in. So there'll be lots of fun activities. And then July 15th is our big summer festival. So we're kind of focusing more minutely on bigger scale events rather than spreading ourselves thin throughout the summer. So July 15th is our big one, where we're going to be having a huge music component with various stages. We're also going to be having tons of family activities throughout the day. So we're really excited for that. And we'll also kick it off with Holly, the Festival of Color, because we would get in people's bag books if we did not bring that festival back. It was very well received. And then I just wanted to highlight another piece that we do, and that's called our Business Spotlight program. So this is where we basically reward, really not monetarily, more just in a shout out, our local businesses who try to go above and beyond. And so there's 3 avenues that they can be nominated for, and that's collaboration. So where they work closely with the local community group, they go above and beyond, where there's community support. So kind of similar, but where they're maybe fundraising for a charity, or they're working together with the local school, or those kind of things. And then curb appeal, so where they really care about their appearance. So just to give you an example, last year we gave out 2 awards. The first one was to Pocket Change, a business on St. Paul Street, close to Geneva. That if any of you are looking for Valentine's gifts, it's a really good place. So the owner here, Melissa, is lovely. It's a very sustainability focused business with a beautiful storefront. And she cares very heavily about the beautification of the front of her sidewalk and her windows. This was the old hobby shop, and she is actually currently working, if any of you remember, to get the old train going. So we're very excited about that. And then the second one that was nominated was Little Chief. So if any of you have dogs or cats in the audience, they are a fantastic independent pet store. So very high quality treats, food, leashes, whatever you need for your dog or your cat, they've got it. And super supportive, hyper local, beautiful people. So they were nominated because they are very good at both collaboration and curb appeal. The front of their store is always beautiful. They do different murals in their windows on a regular basis, and do lots of community support too. Well, that was me. Sorry, if I talk too fast, I tend to speed read a little bit to get me off the mic and you on the mic. But I did want to make sure that we had some time, if we do, hopefully, for any Q&A, or if you guys have any comments about downtown or any of that.
Get the lights back. Thanks.
Yeah.
And probably just go back to gallery.
Perfect. Oh, I can see lots of beautiful faces.
Perfect, you know. This is of course on Zoom.
Yeah. Hi. The parking for event. Okay, we'll get the $5 event parking. $5. Who's that?
It's the city, basically. So when there's larger events on, most of the city lots aren't manned, like especially the surface level ones. But when there's bigger scale events, they hire additional staff to come man the lots and take the fee. So most of the fees will go to that. Whenever we have these bigger scale events like Born and Raised, there's a lot more expenses that the city has. So policing, cleanup, park maintenance, that kind of stuff. So I believe that the additional parking fee increase is to help offset some of those costs.
One of the things that I've noticed, has it ever been considered to close down the center wall? Make it like well, there's places like Burlington where you go to the common area. It changes the whole tone of the city.
I agree with you, and taking my work hat off, personal hat on, 100% would love to pedestrianize St. Paul Street. But work hat back on. We pedestrianized St. Paul Street last year from William through to Carlisle, and then again from Bond to Court, and James Street as well from King to St. Paul Street every single weekend. So being in the role that I'm in, I know firsthand that not everybody liked it. It was very problematic. There's a lot of people that aren't used to not being able to drive and park right in front of their store. There's also a lot of challenges with delivery, with garbage pickup, with on St. Paul Street too, where you have the buildings on the one side, the back onto the raceway. Their only access is St. Paul Street, and some of them have parking behind. So that adds some challenges in terms of how do you access your parking. So I would love future thinking. We need to pedestrianize downtown a bit better, especially when you look at all the developments that are coming to our downtown. I mean, we have high-rise buildings galore going up in our downtown, which is fantastic. We need that intensification in our downtown, but we need to support the people that will be living there by making our downtown more walkable. So I'm hoping we'll see more initiatives like that, and also more bike friendly too, right? You know, I'm a big believer in this 15-minute city model, if anybody's heard of it. So it's basically where you can live, work, play, so to speak, within 15 minutes of where you live. So it's not meant to be by car, it's meant to be by walk or bike. So if you think about it, these buildings that are going up, adding all of this residential to our downtown, which is fantastic, don't typically come with parking. We don't want the people living there to have cars. We don't want them to have cars. But the only way to support that model is by making sure they can get to what they need by bike or walking or transit. There is a great bus terminal downtown. So we're slowly getting there. Did I see a hand go up over? Oh, perfect.
Yes, I noticed a lot of stores. I'm just wondering, one of the problems I see basically is business. And if you drive down St. Paul Street now, it's not too appealing with all the borders, places and so on. I know that new things going on. Are there any plans to rejuvenate those areas in some way?
Yes, you sound just like a committee I was on yesterday. Yes. So I will be completely honest with you. Close your eyes when you drive down St. Paul. Shouldn't say that, you know. St. Paul Street right now is not where it needs to be. There is a lot of hoarding up on our downtown, which I am not happy about. And I've had continual meetings with city staff and so forth to advocate for more regulations with regards to the hoarding. Because right now, basically property owners can put hoarding up. There's no bylaw, there's no requirements for art on it, there's no painting on it. It's just ugly hoarding. So we're looking at getting that changed. We're also trying to fund for grants and sponsorships to get art installed on the hoarding. I will say some of the hoarding is usually a good sign because it means something good is coming. Sometimes. One thing, Paul, I'm not going to hang my hat on that. I'm not going to lie. I don't know when that's going to happen, which is why I'm not happy about that one. But I can say the one that used to be Kaz's. If everybody is familiar with that, it's kind of closer to the curve. There's 3 buildings that are ground floor that are all boarded up right now. Have been for a little bit, but that is literally every single day someone is working in that building, and we're really excited. So between you and me, it is Oast that owns that property. So they are coming with a new beautiful event space, restaurant, bar, and bottlery. So we're really, that will be a huge transformation for that area of our street that has been empty for quite a while.
Which property is that, Rachel?
Yeah, good question. It's right by, so we've got the Rankin Bridge, which most people used to go to the Meridian Center. So yeah, right across the street from it, that's right.
I came to the city this month, 54 years ago, for a job interview, and I stayed at like Leonard's Hotel, supposedly the best hotel in town that my employer would be up at. I looked out of the window and I was playing not too unlike this one, and thought, my God, what am I coming to? And the downtown, it was 10 years after the Penn Centre was established, first of the Braithwaite Plaza, and then there's a regional shopping centre by the time I got here. And the downtown was obviously fighting, retail-wise, was fighting the shopping centre mentality and the convenience and all the rest of the world. And that shopping centre mentality is still strong and healthy in this city. And against it, it's continually fought against it. In the meantime, of course, it tried to compete with the shopping mall by establishing the Core. The Core was a failed shopping centre, still is a failed shopping centre. It has never got, and it's not really much legs. So I think it's a successful shopping office block because my dear wife worked there for the years. And so we tried the shopping centre model. We worked in the Eaton Centre in Toronto, the most successful shopping centre and the most highly taxed shopping centre in Christendom. But anyway, that we're not Eaton Centre. We tried the office block mentality, first with the MTO building, and the office centre of the region, and so on and so forth. That wasn't very successful, as we well know. So we tried different models to create a successful downtown. And the one that obviously people are talking about around the world is bring people back living downtown for an entry to their local shopping centre. Remember, the downtown population since the Second World War has gone down by 3/4. People have gone to the burbs and have had fewer children, downtown attracting old people, and so on. So the model, I think, that is in the throes of being successful is the new 18-story office block behind the Leonard's Hotel, the proposed 30-story apartment building where Gord's place is. We need more of those downtown. But we see the one that once and Paul stood up, and the appearance of that whole ended up, it drives people away. And there's also a security factor. I think it's gender specific, but women won't go downtown. We will, it feels reasonable, safe than they. My wife is sometimes fears about going downtown if someone going into her bank to get money, and she's accosted by a homeless person. I feel sorry for the homeless person who should be catered for elsewhere. It is in downtown, in your face. And the one way to say, to get around this, I think we have to propose more buildings downtown, and more buildings that are going to appear to be successful. Once and all, now boarded up to the hilt and flapping, things hanging over the street and so on. It doesn't give a good appearance, and there's too much boarded up downtown. And the former provincial gas building has been in the throes of renovation for nearly 20 years. I mean, let's be quite honest. I'm sure the BA have tried, and I don't know what to say is true, but there needs to be something taken over by our city on your behalf to really turn this around. I think we talk about the civic square. I was involved in some negotiation for closing up James Street between Church and King. So you create a civic square. And we've talked about this since we're under this today. When I was on the downtown revitalization, talked about. You know, we need to get on with the job. And I say one of the key things for getting on the job is to create a living presence downtown by lots of people who won't need cars, for example. And we can then put people in the neighborhood who will shop in the neighborhood, who will go to offices in the neighborhood. This is our key. I say we failed for 50 years. I've started the downtown doesn't look a lot better than it did when I came here 50 years ago. And I think we need to really put back downtown, and it will be done by people. We've seen people in downtown Burlington and Oakville and other places where they are much more successful downtowns. And I think this is what needs to happen in St. Catharines, and soon.
I would agree with you. I think the challenge is going to be soon. These developments take a long time to build, too long sometimes. But I would agree with you completely. We saw through COVID that office space, while may have been good pre-COVID, decimated our downtown when, you know, even right now, and the MTO building is not full capacity.
You know, I hope for you to be on the city. All in favor of you on the city.
And Rachel, you'll never know that you as a retired urban university.
Oh.
You'll never tell you that.
Well, if you want to join our advocacy committee, because that's one of the main reasons we've switched to advocacy, is because we are realizing we need to fight and advocate for buildings that you've mentioned, like the one on Church, like the one on St. Paul Street, even the Welland House Hotel. And the feedback that we get from the city is, well, it's the Ontario Building Code, it's out of our hands. So it shows that we need to then not just advocate with our municipality, but advocate Ontario-wide. So, which is why one of the reasons I'm on the Ontario BIA Association's advocacy committee, because we're stronger together to have that voice. It's just frustrating and challenging because it takes forever for us to get the results that we need to see today. But I agree with you completely about we need people in our downtown that live in our downtown, because it is the only way to survive. And I would argue that that is the one downfall of St. Catharines, is we, even the largest urban growth center in the Niagara region, the largest downtown in the Niagara region, and we have barely any high rises for residential in our downtown. So that is a huge gap that we need to fill quick. Yeah.
Thoughts are staggered, so to that. It's like a bag full of groceries we have dumped on the table, so that's how it's going to go right now. I'm right on spot with you and other things that we shared with them. But here's my dump on the table. Okay, one is as a boy, this was an attractive city to me. I left the city for a lot of years. And but always I wanted to come back and see the magic of the downtown. I would make a point of just taking a ride down St. Paul Street. What is the glamour of that? Well, there's some magic buildings along that street. It's a snake-type road. It's got a lot of magic. It's got the Niagara on the Lake appeal, or the Oakville, or the Burlington, or the whatever. And yet I'm seeing this thing dying. Thoughts that come to my mind are, what are the incentives I need taxing of these people who are wanting to have businesses downtown? Is it affordable? Or is the city into an old, and I think of other places where traditionally the downtown was taxed very high and it became unaffordable. Is that St. Catharines? Another is, what are they doing to encourage people to come in? The other is these buildings that are left high and dry, nothing happening for it even up. Is there any sense of penalty for that kind of thing, that they are responsible for what they are needing and giving to us to look at? And we can probably stretch that out to the old GM site on Ontario Street. Okay, like what are our city parents doing politically, bureaucratically to improve the situation? One just another piece of information that's on the table is a lot of towns in the U.S. Have little buses that you can go to a tourist booth and be told what the magic is of an area, get on the slope. Land, tour bus and tour the area. I don't see that here. Maybe we're too ashamed to show off what we have. And I think if that's the case, that's very, very sad. But anyway, I think there's a magic in St. Paul Street. We are second to none as far as that magic. It's just allowed to come to life.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. So you might need to refresh my memory of some of the questions you have, but I'll try and touch on some of them. So my experience is incentives work way better than penalties. Because if somebody's got a crumbling down building, not taking care of it, let's be honest, they don't care. So tax them, they don't care. Whereas if you can incentivize someone, they're much more likely to take advantage of it. And that's where something called the CIP, the Community Improvement Program, that's where that becomes a tool that our city should be using. Just to give you an example, so my previous years to St. Catharines, I worked for BIA on Barton Street in Hamilton, which I'm sure all of you have heard is beautiful and delightful tourist spot in Hamilton. So Barton Street saw huge revitalization when I was there. Some would say gentrification, which is a fine line. But the reason I believe that it saw that revitalization is a few things. So the one, the community believed in it. The community was able to stand up and say, oh, no, you don't. This is my downtown and this is my community and I'm going to fight to get this to be what it wants to be. So we need belief. We need downtown believers that will stand and advocate to make our downtown better. The second thing they had is CIPs. So for example, the downtown, for Barton Street alone, they had a facade improvement grant program that would allow any building owner to get a matching grant of up to $50,000 for any improvement in their building, inside, outside, residential, roof, HVAC, whatever you need, do it. And their budget for that per year was $250,000 for one street. The CIP facade improvement program for the city of St. Catharines, you have to improve the front of your building by set requirements. It needs to be from the floor to the top of the building, which means not one of my independent businesses can apply for that because they typically don't own the building. And their budget is $40,000 for the whole city, the whole year. So, so there's some challenges, and in terms of attracting both good landlords, because let's be honest, we want the good landlords because that means our businesses are more successful. We saw that hugely through COVID. You know, I heard heartbreaking stories of landlords that would literally lock the door on the tenant, the business tenant, and all of the equipment was in there that they had for their restaurant. They had just rented the space. There's nothing they can do. There is no, you know, fight they can have. There's no cap on the commercial rent even. So, you know, there's some challenges that commercial tenants do have, which, you know, a lot more risk, right? So in terms of cost comparisons, I have been told by one of our developers downtown that it's more expensive to develop in the downtown than it is anywhere else in the city, because you're dealing with a lot more challenges in the downtown. You need more remediation, more environmental assessment work. The soil isn't very strong, so you have to dig extra deep to go extra high, which adds additional costs. So the downtown has its challenges by far, and we need to make sure that our incentives enable people to do the dreams they have for the downtown. And I would argue that unfortunately right now, most of our councillors don't always understand what a CIP program is. So for example, we have a 37-story building that's going in at the corner where most people call the rock pile, right at Ontario and St. Paul. It's been approved. And so they applied for the CIP program. They fit every category that the councillors had come up with to qualify for the CIP program. But councillors still wanted to not give them this incentive. So that's where the disconnect is, because the councillors see this as well, why are we paying developers to build, right? But they're not. They're giving them a tax break. But you know what? Those taxes wouldn't be there if that building wasn't there. So, we need to rejig how we look at things to make sure that they're the correct, appropriate incentives are there.
You've more or less alluded to some of what my question is going to be predicated on, but first point is the success of BIAs predicated on size that it encompasses, and point taken, and alluded to community spirit. Downtown St. Catharines BIA is quite huge. Maybe not everybody is amiable, but the face of street, I'm not even sure if they're called it. The success of their event is huge in comparison to what trying to do downtown. And I think we get one of the big points is that little community is really behind everything. They only have invited me. So again, there are studies. Too much time, but there's studies on the size of success of BIA, or were they just too big? And thanks.
That's a good question. I don't know if there has been. I would say that the size of the BIA may determine how strong a BIA is. So, for example, we're the only BIA in St. Catharines, which is shocking. But I think we're the only one because if you look at Port Dalhousie, there's only a couple of commercial property owners, and it's the commercial property owners that pay the tax or the levy that create the BIA, right? So you need a good enough number for the BIA to be viable. Also because BIAs have ongoing costs they have to pay, for example, insurance, and if there's events, they've got those expenses. So there's set costs that BIAs have to have that if you're a really small BIA, you're typically not going to have money for staffing. You're not going to have money for office or any of that kind of stuff. So it's literally volunteer run, which sometimes doesn't make it as viable or as strong, right? Whereas, so to give you my example before, so I came from Barton Street. Barton Street had a budget of $75,000. And it was just one staff, well, two staff. I had a marketing assistant. So two staff in that office. And then here for St. Catharines Downtown Association, our levy this year is $400,000. So a big chunk different. And then we have two full-time staff. We're looking to bring on another and a couple part-time staff. But St. Catharines BIA, last year we brought in almost over $300,000 in grants. That I've never done that in my life. I could do that because of the size of our budget gave us the ability, and the size of our staff load gave us the ability to say, hey, we'll match it with this much, right? So that $75,000 that we spent on beautification initiatives last year, almost all of it was grant money we brought in, right? Same with all the events that we did. They were all pretty much funded through grants we brought in. And that allows us to make sure that the commercial property owners that are contributing get twice the amount they can contribute, right? So we make their money go further, and that makes a successful BIA. If you're a smaller BIA with small funds, you typically don't have the capacity to do that return on risk. But you're right, there are challenges in a big BIA because it's hard to get everyone on the same playing field. I think you hit it. I think community. Community is key. And the downtown, going back to before, doesn't have that much community. We don't have the residential intensification to build the community that we need. There's no neighborhood association downtown, right? There's no groups for community building. We need that in our downtown. Maybe, but you got to pay some bills somehow, right?
Tim, what do you think? There was two done type questions. I have one more question. If your question is short one, Tim. It's, what do you think? Your call. All right. Joe, I don't know. You might give it a lot, Joe.
Have two problems in different ways. I come from a family business on Queenston Street. Dunn's Flower Shop is no more. And I think it's partly due to poor planning by the city. And especially against all the concrete islands that have gone in, because it cuts the flow of traffic by where my business, not mine, family's business. At one point, they put $12,000 worth of concrete into making a nice loopy island in front of the flower shop, which took away the 4 parking spaces. That kind of business needed the parking spaces, but fell on deaf ears from city council until they did the same thing to Beneath Brick. And there was such a holler there that they gave them back their space so they could pull in and let grandma. But anyway, they took away all that concrete for another $12,000 and put back the 4 parking spaces. By that time, half the business was killed. Then the second issue is across the street, there is a street going down to Welland Avenue. And that street is well known for housing the ladies of the evening in the area. The business had to clean off needles and everything out of their hedges every day. Got very little support from the police because, well, we like it centralized in one spot. My cousin Bob, who was the last survivor there, he went over to talk to the ladies and said, if I buy you a cab ride back and forth, will you go to buy your business in front of their favorite office? I don't need to say more, you know. Queenston Street is the kid. And the so-called wine trail, which is on the opposite side of where the problem is. Yeah, a joke, I mean, it doesn't need to be that.
So I can't say too much to that, but I will say one of the benefits of being in a BIA is the advocacy piece, right? So we've just created or we're in the process of creating and getting signed from the city a memorandum of understanding, which gives us the ability. So whenever any street work is done, whenever any road reconstruction is done, higher or lower, different levels, we are at the table. So that's one of the benefits of having a dedicated staff person, because I'm sure, as you remember, it takes a lot of hours to put in, like a full-time job, to advocate, to be part of that table. So that's one of the benefits of BIA can bring, for sure. The other piece I will say is I agree with you completely. I feel like, you know, from the downtown, so the downtown goes from Ontario Street to St. Paul Street, to Geneva, along King, up James, along Church, back to Ontario, if you can imagine my map in my head. And I will say Geneva Street, the other side of Geneva Street, it feels to me a little bit as no man's land. And that's heartbreaking to me, because it feels like everything's just being dumped there. There's no pride in that area. And it doesn't help the businesses in that area. And it doesn't help our downtown, because we have a lot of people in need in that area. And when they look to Panhandle, they come right across the street to our downtown, because that's where the people are with the money. So it has these trickle effects, because we've kind of centralized all of our services in one area. That is not a good way to build a city or a downtown. Sorry.
One of the things that was on the news a lot before the pandemic, much about it lately, was bringing the GO train through St. Catharines. And they had a lot of public consultation sessions that I went to. There are two kinds of GO stations. One of them was where you just get on the GO train and you go, and you come back and go home. The other kind is turning that GO station into a commercial hub.
with both residential and commercial and also some retail businesses. And that's what they were proposing for St. Catharines. I wonder if that's still in discussion. To me, that would take away completely from anything that's going to happen in the downtown area. We're going to move people over in that direction. Is that still something they're planning or thinking about? I'm still highly against turning it into a commercial hub. Because I figured it would take away from downtown efforts. Is that still in the works? Is there something you can latch onto?
Yeah, that's really, thanks for bringing it to my attention because it wasn't on my attention. So that would have started before I started. So I know there's been recent conversation about, because I think the city just purchased land, the old terminal. So let me do some digging, and if I might touch base with you afterwards, if you have contacts, I might steal them or any of that kind of stuff for who was working on that project. Yeah, thank you. But I appreciate you advocating against it because I agree. Not that we can't have more than one commercial area in a city, don't get me wrong, the more the merrier. It's just there needs to be connectivity to those areas. Going back to the bus comment earlier, you know, Port Dalhousie, I think it was Port Dalhousie or the beaches at least, had buses that were free from the central bus terminal, which is in our downtown, to those beaches, building that connectivity. So fantastic resource, good first step. The challenge again, I feel, is where was the marketing for that? I kind of knew about that because of my role, but I didn't see anywhere where that was advertised. I found out about it because I was listening to a council meeting and heard a councillor say it. There was nothing to my recollection in forms of marketing for that. And I think that sometimes is the gap that we need to work on is our marketing initiatives. We have a great thing. We have a beautiful city, fantastic downtown. We need to be standing up and being proud of that because if we don't, then we're never going to be where we want to be. Sorry, I could go on forever.
Rachel, I told you so. I told you would be exciting and interesting. In fact, you changed the Q&A to Q, A, and O. Questions, answers, and opinions. And this could go on for a long time. To help you, I want to suggest that we're going to give you a thank you gift. Thank you gift is a $30 LCBO gift certificate, which will give you some rest and help. Thank you, Rachel. Very enjoyable.
Well, gentlemen, that brings today's story to a conclusion.